Okay.
We can't see your screen. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so we're going to go through NetSuite dashboards and KPIs this morning. So just a quick introduction. Most of you probably know me already. I'm Sinead Hayes. I'm the marketing manager here in Awesome Cloud. And I'm joined by my colleague, Brian Doherty. Again, most of you know Brian already. He's one of our solution consultants. And Jenna Sherlock is from our marketing team. So she's here today as well. So the objective really is to help you to customize your own dashboards and to learn how to publish dashboards to other users, understanding again the different portlets that are available to you, and to also work with save searches to create custom KPIs for your reports and your dashboards. And at the end of the day, we're hoping that you'll just learn something new. We have a different skills mix on the webinar today with people who've been using NetSuite for a lot longer and may know more, and other people who may know less. So again, it's just a matter of trying to give you an overview, and we're not going to go into a huge amount of depth. So hopefully everybody will take something away from this session. So I'm going to hand over, before I do that actually, I'll just run through the quick agenda. So it's very quick, really. We've got personalizing dashboards and portlets, and we're going to work with a number of portlets that are there as standard. We're going to add them onto a blank canvas. We've chosen a selection of portlets, but there's obviously a lot more in there. So it's a good opportunity afterwards for you to play around with it and just become familiar with the different portlets that are available. We're going to also touch on save searches, and we're not going to go again into a huge amount of depth, but we'll use save searches to create key performance indicators. And from there, then scorecards, meters, trend graphs, they should just fall out of the KPIs. So I'm going to hand over now to Brian, and he's going to talk us through the presentation. Thanks, Brian.
All right, Sinead, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen now, so hopefully you can see that. Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for coming to the webinar. And it's good to see that you are all so well. So just to basically, with your dashboards, when a user logs into NetSuite, they're presented with a page, and that's their home page. and this effectively, that home page is effectively a dashboard. Now you can have that's your home page dashboard. You can have dashboards on each of the individual tabs along the top. So you can, if I click on the customer overview, for example, this is also a dashboard. So it's a dashboard specific to the customer area. And if I just go back to the home page, we've got our general homepage dashboard. The little areas within the dashboard are called portlets. So your dashboard is made up of a collection of portlets. And the idea is that you, for each individual user or group of users, that you put a selection of portlets onto the dashboard that are relevant to that role or to that user. The other nice thing about it is if a user or a manager sets up their dashboard in a particular way that they think is relevant to a group of people or the people that work with them, they can publish that dashboard to that group of people. So, and you can then, depending on their permissions, obviously they can publish that dashboard, and then they can set permissions on the dashboard as to what those users can then do within the dashboard to each individual to the portlets, whether they can edit them or move them or not. What we're looking at now is an example of the financial controller dashboard. Now, I should say at the outset, this is a demo system, so these dashboards, this has been configured in a way that is suitable for particular roles. So if I look at this one, this is the financial controller dashboard, and we can see that there's information on this dashboard. There are various trend graphs and KPIs and information and reminders that are relevant to this role. So we're looking at the monthly receivables trend, the monthly payables trend, reminders like bills to pay. So this is all financial controller related. If I go to another type of user. So we'll go to the sales manager. We've got information on this dashboard that would be more relevant to.
Sorry, Brian, can I interrupt you there for a second? Just a reminder, just if everybody could put their lines on mute, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sinead. So we've got information here that's maybe more relevant to a sales manager. So we've got customer by sales, and we can see that the key performance indicators are more relevant to a sales manager, like new opportunities, new estimates, etc. So it's all quite role related. So what we'll do now is, if I go to my administrator role, and the reason I'm going to that is because I've created a blank canvas here. And what we'll do is we will drop portlets onto this blank canvas or this dashboard. I'm using the home page dashboard as well. So a couple of small settings that are useful on this and that you need to consider before you start is, what layout do you want for your dashboard? So we have a few different layouts here. I'm going to choose the layout where we have a column on the right and the left where we can put smaller portlets, and then we have a larger area in the middle where we can put maybe graphs or lists that take up more space. So I'm going to choose and I'm going to use that. And then the one up the top is the viewing one. And what we have here is these are the date ranges that we're going to view. As standard or as default, it gives you Portlet date settings as the setting here. And what that basically means is that you can set the date ranges on the individual portlets, as opposed to choosing one specific date range or comparison range that will be applied to all the portlets within your dashboard. So I normally let it sit at the Portlet date settings and then set the dates on the individual portlets. And that gets us on to actually putting on actual portlets into our dashboard. I broadly have broken the portlets out into really two different kinds. We've got general portlets to give us general information on in various different ways. And then we've got our KPI, our key performance indicator type portlets, which there's about 4, I suppose. There's the meters, scorecards, key performance indicators, and then there's one over on the right-hand side, which is the trend graphs. So I'll start with an easy one, and I'll put in I'll drop in the bank reconciliation portlet. So we've gone to personalized dashboard. We're in standard content, and we just click on the portlet that we want to put into our dashboard, and it drops in. Now, this bank reconciliation summary portlet will be really related to a financial role, and it's simply showing us the individual bank accounts, currency, account balance, last reconciled balance, and when it was last reconciled on. Each portlet also has its own settings. In case of, and they will be found where you see the 3 little dots. And in the case of this one, there isn't very much many settings, but we'll come back to that at a later stage. It's also worth pointing out at this stage that one of the settings that's always on it is the remove, so I can always just click remove, and that takes the portlet back off your dashboard. So we'll leave that bank reconciliation one there. And the next one we will put on is the quick search portlet. And this is a useful little portlet. What everybody would be used to would be using the global search or the global NetSuite search up the top of the screen. What this allows you to do is to do a more focused search in a specific area of the software. If I go to maybe choose the vendor area, and I type in vendor name and hit enter, it brings you up to the to to that particular vendor, and we can view or edit that vendor's details. If we go to the settings on this and we go to setup, we can choose that we start our search or that our default, so the user's default search area is, and we'll just stick with the vendor. So every time that user logs in, it's ready to search through the vendor's information. Now you can search through static information like names, addresses, telephone numbers, or you can search through transactional information as well, depending on what you put in here. Another type of portlet that people use quite a lot and that is very useful is the reminders portlet. And what this basically does, it displays reminders maybe of tasks that are due to be completed, or like, you know, orders to approve, expenses to pay, bills to pay. So that sort of information. So it's giving you a visual reminder that you should be completing a task. And the reminders depend again on the way you set this up and the way you configure reminders. This can be role specific as well. The system comes with a standard set of reminders that NetSuite have given us, but you can create your own reminders from by creating a new save search or add an existing save search. I'm going to come back later to creating save searches or editing existing save searches. If we look at our reminders here, if we go to setup, we can go to maybe click on this one. So we'll add this one to the right hand side and we say save, and we can see now that we have a reminder for bills to pay. So we have 49 bills to pay. On the right hand side of each of the reminders, we've got a little edit button. If I click on that, we can highlight particular reminders that may be more important, and what we can do is we can say that remind me if there are if the bills to pay, for example, are when they are 5 days before due date. So you can put in 10 days before due date. We can say display as headline, which will move it up into the top section, and we can highlight in a particular color when a threshold is met. So maybe when there are more than 20 on the list. If I say save, that'll move the bills to pay. It'll highlight it in green. It'll move it into the headline section. And because our tolerance has been met, it is showing it. So that's just a reminder. So again, that's can be specific to roles. And if I click on a particular reminder, it'll bring me into that area of the software, into the area, the bills to pay area. And yeah, it's just a quick link into that area as well. So yeah, that's a nice little useful one to start using. Just the next one we'll take a look at is the custom search, and again this is referring back to save searches again. I say there's a common theme here. A lot of these portlets revolve around save searches. And effectively a save search, as you know, you put all your information into NetSuite, whether it's transactional or static information like customers' names and addresses, and then you use the likes of save searches to query that information. So a save search is basically a query and a way of outputting the data for a particular area of the system in a usable format. And I'm using that word save search, but everybody is familiar with what a save search is, even if you don't really realize it. Because if I go in and just look at a list of customers, a list of customers is a save search. It's just referred to in the system as a list. The nice thing about save searches is that you can sort of recycle them if you like. You can go in and edit an existing save search, change the information on it, save it as something else, and then that becomes a more relevant saved search to you. If I go to more options, there is an option on every saved search, or not every, but most saved searches, whether this saved search should be made available as a reminder. So that allows you to put it into the reminders portlet. So you can filter the information in a specific way that should show up as a reminder. In relation to the custom search, I'm going to add a save search here, and it allows me to search through my whole list of saved searches. And I'm just going to put one on called spend by vendor. And again, if you want to give it a different name than the name that's on the saved search, we can do that as well. We can decide how many lines you want to show in our portlet. I suppose it's worth remembering that the dashboard is a certain size, and then, you know, if you put too many lines on it, it just won't really fit in. So you have to be sensible about your result sizes. If I click save, then that's given me my list of suppliers and their spend. Again, depending on the filters you have on your saved search, depends on the way you can filter that information within the portlet on the dashboard. Another nice little option here is we can maximize this. So if the portlet doesn't fit all the information in on the dashboard, we can say maximize, and then that'll expand it to show you more information. So that brings me to another type of portlet, and that is the analytics portlet. Another thing I should point out is when I highlight a particular portlet, there's a number up on the right-hand side, and that's the number of this type of portlet that you can put onto a dashboard. So I can put up to 10 analytics portlets onto one dashboard. If I go to the custom search one, we actually can do 6. I've already got one on my dashboard, so I've got 5 remaining. Some of them you only can put one on, and we'll see that later. So if I choose, now I should explain again, the analytics area is a relatively new area to NetSuite. And what it allows you to do is take the information within the system and to slice it and dice it and to drag and drop information as very similar to an Excel spreadsheet or an Excel pivot table. And I suppose what they're trying to do in a way is to take a lot of the work that you do in Excel and put it back into NetSuite with that whole ethos of keeping all the information in one space and not having to export information into spreadsheets and reanalyze it. So that's what the whole analytics area allows you to do. So what I'm going to do is put a portlet for analytics within the dashboard. I'll go to setup, and I'll choose a particular type of analytics workbook that I've already worked on in the background, and I'll say save. And what that does is that will give us that information within our dashboard, and it just takes a couple of seconds. And when it loads up, we've got effectively, it allows a user to share a workbook that they've been working in the background with relevant users. And again, it saves you going into a particular area. It's sitting there, and it's easy for you to see, and it updates as you update the information in your system. Again, this is one that lends itself to be maximized. We can see it when it's maximized, we can see more information, and it works like the analytics workbooks to a certain extent. You don't have all the functionality, but it allows us to minimize, and it allows us to maximize, and all those sort of nice things. Another item I should point out is the update or refresh icon. If somebody else is working away entering information into the system, unless you refresh your portlet, you may not see the results of what the other person is doing. So if you're unsure and you think the information isn't changing, then you just click on the refresh button and that'll refresh that portlet. The other nice thing about these this analytics portlet is that you can open the workbook that is the background to this in the analytics area, so you can just go directly into it. And again, that depends on the permissions of the individual. Another very important portlet, and this is particularly for the users or the customers who are with us today that have one world. And one world is basically the environment where you have a group company and you have multiple subsidiaries. A very, very useful portlet to use is the subsidiary navigator. And this allows us to display the information within the on the portlets in a subsidiary specific way. Now I should point out as well that this is in a separate area called Suite Apps, and that this portlet is actually a bundle in NetSuite and it has to be installed separately. So if any of you today are in a one world environment and when you go in to personalized dashboards and you can't see, so you go into the Suite Apps and you can't see the subsidiary navigator within here, just give us a call and we'll talk you through and we'll help you to install it on your system. For some reason it isn't there as standard, it needs to be installed, but it's a very simple 5-minute job to do so. So again, I can drag and drop these to different areas within the system. So I can go drag that portlet up there to a more relevant position. And the idea of the subsidiary navigator is I currently have a group-wide view of my information. But if I click on an individual subsidiary, the information within the portlets changes to a subsidiary specific context. So if I click on Netherlands, we can see that the vendors down here have changed to the ones that are within the Netherlands subsidiary. Click on UK, the same happens. And if I click on the parent company, which is the top of the group, I get a group overview. The other thing with the subsidiary navigator is that this follows through to reporting. So if I click on a specific subsidiary and I go to run a report, it'll run the report for the subsidiary that I have chosen within the subsidiary navigator. Downside of that is if you've forgotten you've done that and you go in and you run reports or you're looking at your dashboards, you may get confused and say, where is all my information gone? So you should just remember then to click on the parent company and that'll reveal all the information for all the subsidiaries. So that is the end of that area of the sort of general portlets. The next category of portlets are the key performance indicator type portlets. So I suppose the key performance indicators that show you the metrics that are most relevant to the user. So the metrics are normally summary data that are generated maybe from or gotten from particular reports or again saved searches, and they're normally for a selected date range. Again, NetSuite provide a standard set of key performance indicators, but it is possible for the user or a manager to create key performance indicators or KPIs that are more relevant to the organization or to that group of users. And we'll take a quick look at creating one of those as well. So one of the custom KPIs. So if I go back to my standard content and I go to the key performance indicators, we can see here we're given some quite general key performance indicators that are quite financial oriented. If I go to setup And we can see what I can do then is if I go to add a standard KPI, and what I'll do is I'll add some sales related ones. So I'll say maybe open opportunities. And what I'll do as well is I'll put the estimates on as well. And I'll say done, and then they appear on my list here. And we can see here the date ranges that are being used as the comparison. And what I can do then is because I know that with the data that I have, that'd be more relevant to put in this year. So I'm going to compare this year against last year. And I'm going to do the same for the estimates. So I'm going to say this year versus last year. What we can also do in here is a bit like what we've seen with the reminders. We can highlight them so that they stand out as important indicators, or they bring your eye to them a bit quicker. So what we can say is highlight, and we'll say highlight if it is less than maybe 80, and that is looking at the change. Okay, so if in this case it seems a bit high, all right, but if the opportunities have changed by less than 80%, we're going to highlight that fact. And we'll do the same with the estimates. We'll say if it is less than, and I just know from the information I'm going to put a high value in, I'm going to put in 300, then we want to highlight it. And we also can make these headline KPIs so that they're even more visible for us. And if I say save, so that changes our key performance indicators. So our Portlet. So we can see here, this one is highlighted, this one isn't. So if I go into setup, and I should have said less than here, and we'll say save, and now that one appears in our headline section as well, and it's highlighted for us. So that just is how to change those. The other thing to note here is that you have a little trend graph for that individual KPI. So we can go into that trend graph directly from the KPI Portlet. So we'll just take a quick look at now is using a save search and creating our own specific KPI. Now I'm going to take a relatively simple example of the number of invoices that were created in and as a KPI. So if I go to transactions, I go to sales, and I go to create invoices, and I go to list. So I've gone to my list of invoices, which, as I pointed out, is a save search. I'm going to customize that list of invoices or that save search. First thing I always do if I'm creating a new save search is I rename it, because I don't want to overwrite the existing save search. So I'm going to say that it's awesome. Put the initials in. And I'm looking at the save search, and I'm going, I don't really need these fields, so I can remove these fields if I like. So again, this is the nice thing about creating your own save searches from an existing save search. So I get rid of the ones that I don't want. And if I go to more options, I can see again more tabs here, and I've got my results. So the results are what's going to be output as part of your save search. And what I'm going to do here is, this is basically we're looking at the quantity over a particular period of time. So what we have to do is do a count. So we have to count the number of invoices. And to count something, you need to basically pick a unique feature on the transaction. And in this case, the unique feature that I'm going to use is the document number. So I'm going to count the number of document numbers. Because all KPIs are really done over ranges of time, what we have to make sure is that we have a filter that is a time-related filter. So we need to either put in the date or the period. So depending, KPIs can be date related or they can be period related. So to cover everything, I'm going to put in both the date and the period. We can remove any unwanted filters and click on save. So we can see here that it's now doing a count of the number of invoices. So if I now go back to my KPIs, I go to setup, I go to add custom because it's a customized one, and I start typing in awesome, and it'll bring up that save search to be used as a KPI. So if I click on that, I say done, and it's asking me the date ranges I want to compare over, and I can choose this year versus last year and say save. And again, that KPI is now within the KPI indicators portlet. The next related portlet that we'll look at is the KPI scorecard. And the KPI scorecard portlet is quite similar to the indicators, only it expands on the whole KPI indicators portlet. So it sort of displays your choice of what you're doing is displaying your choice of performance scorecard. And KPI scorecards are a more complex comparison among multiple KPIs, and they can be expanded over multiple date ranges or accounting periods. Now, the scorecards are basically a collection of KPIs in a more focused way. NetSuite standard comes with one standard KPI scorecard, and that KPI scorecard is the financial ratios scorecard. But again, we'll take a look at how we can create other scorecards or examples of those scorecards. So if I go into one that I've created earlier, and I'll call it the Awesome Financials scorecard, and I click save, you can see that these scorecards are, this is looking at the current ratio, so it's quite financials oriented. If I go to into a different role, so if I go into, for example, maybe sales manager role, we can see here that the scorecards for the sales manager role are a lot more detailed, and we've got a lot more periods that are being analysed over. So you've got, and they're focused to that area of the organization. So you've got sales orders, opportunities, pipelines, so all the sales and marketing related items. So if I go back to mine, and if I go into setup, sorry, I'm going to go into edit, and we can see how a KPI scorecard is made up. So what you can do is you can just create formulas. So for example, the receivables turnover is sales divided by receivables. So you can create your own formulas within KPI scorecard as well. If I go to periods, we can see the periods that this KPI scorecard is going to be comparing its information. And what we can do, like some of the others, we can highlight specific KPI indicators. So in this case, I'll do the profit margin one. I'm going to say that if the profit margin is greater than, and I'm going to put in a threshold. And again, we're looking at, so I'm going to say 100, and it's asking me which column that I'm looking at. And I'm going to say we're looking at the percentage change column. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a bit overboard here, but I'll put in a $sign. I'll say that the text color is going to be white, and the background color is going to be red, and that we're going to bold it, and it's going to become a headline. And I'll say add, and I say save, and we can see we've created one that's highlighted, and there's a little dollar symbol. So you can use those symbols in a more relevant way. There's quite a few, and I think you can add them as well. Now, other types of scorecards, if I go to setup, if I go to maybe customer activity, and I say save. So again, this is more relevant to sales environment as well, and sales activity. So we've got the likes of events, number of phone calls made in particular periods, tasks, total activities, sales per activity. So you've got more focused relevant KPIs that are relevant to that area of the business. As I said earlier, it's possible to create your own scorecards, as it only comes with the one standard one. So what you can do is, if we go into customization, go to centers and tabs, and we go to KPI scorecards. Well, see, here is a list of ones that have been created within this demo environment, but you can create new ones from scratch and add them in here. If I go back, we can see that there's quite a list of ones here. So you can go in and create your own KPI scorecards, either from existing KPIs, or you can add formula directly into the scorecard to create a KPI. So if I go back to the dashboard here, the next type of portlet, if I go to personalize, is the KPI meter. And this is just a way of graphically representing one of your key performance indicators. So in this example here, we've got the COGS, cost of goods sold, and we can see that currently it's 4.84 or 4.1 million. And we can see that there, that is telling us it's 4.2. And we can see what it was last year, which is the 19.9 million. And what you also can do is, if you set thresholds within your key performance indicators, it'll have a little line on it highlighting where the threshold is that you don't want to go over. And another way of graphically representing your KPIs is by using trend graphs. So if I go into the trend graphs here, I go into setup, and I'll just leave it as the open opportunities one. If I say save, and we can see here that we've got a trend graph of that KPI. So the open opportunities one. And what we can do here is we can change the periods over which we want to look at it. So I can say I want to do it on a monthly basis. And we can change the way that it looks on the graph. So I can use a bar chart if I like. So if I go up to the settings, we also have the options here to print that chart. Export actually exports the information that backs up the chart, or the data, into an Excel spreadsheet. And we've also got, we can download it as in various formats that you might use maybe to add to a PowerPoint or to another document. We've got the maximize option that allows us to see it in a more appropriate format or to expand it. That is the end of where I'm going, what I'm going to show in relation to the various dashboard or portlets that exist that you can put onto your dashboard. We'll just take a quick look at now before I finish this. I've alluded to it earlier, is the ability to set up your dashboard and then to publish that dashboard that you've set up to a user or a group of users, or to a role that contains a number of different users. So what we'll do is, this is mainly for managers or administrators who might have created a dashboard and they want to share this with their colleagues. So while I'm logged in at the person who is sharing, so it could be a sales manager or whatever, or a production manager, this person must have the permissions on their role that enables them to publish the dashboard. So if I go to setup and I go to users and roles and manage roles, and I look at a particular role, and in this case I'm going to use the sales manager role, and I go to permissions and I look at setup, and I can see that the sales manager does have the ability to share their role with other users, but if they don't, then you need to go in here and add that permission to the role. So I'll go back out onto my home page, and what I'll do is I'm going to switch to the sales manager role, and we can see within the settings portlet on here that they have the option, or they have the permission to publish a dashboard. So as the sales manager, I'm going to share this with my sales reps. So I'm going to go to publish dashboard. I'm going to give it a name. I'll say awesome sales rep dashboard. I can get the system automatically give it an ID. I can add extra notes about this dashboard to give a further explanation. And it's now asking me here, to what roles do I want to apply this? So I'm going to say I'm going to apply it to the awesome sales rep role. And I'm going to go to apply to tabs. So this is asking me, where do I want to deploy this dashboard? So within this role, so within the sales rep role, where do I want to deploy it? And I'm going to say that I'm just going to deploy it within the home dashboard. Now you could choose, maybe you could deploy it within the customers area or forecast area, wherever you like. So when I go to, we've got other options here, and this is the mode, and it's whether it's unlocked, locked, or add, move content. What unlocked means is that the user has full ability within the role, when they log in, to move, to edit the portlets, to delete the portlets if they want. Locked means that the dashboard is completely locked. They can't do anything with it. They can't move anything on it. They can't change data on it. And this one here this allows the users to add portlets to the dashboard or move the portlets about the dashboard when they log in, but it doesn't allow them to delete anything off the dashboard. I'll just leave it as unlocked at the moment. And when you're happy with that, you can just click on save. All right, so I've already associated a dashboard to this role, so I'll just leave it for now. But the result is, if I go back to the main dashboard here and I go in to the role that I've applied the dashboard settings to, the result should be is that when you go into that role, you get exactly the same dashboard that you had within the sales manager role. So it just means that each individual doesn't have to set up their dashboards, and or a manager doesn't have to go into every user and set up the dashboard individually for them. So you can set up the dashboard once and publish it to multiple users. So that sort of rounds up what I've been speaking to you about this morning. So it sort of brings me to the end of the presentation. So I hope that gives you a feel for the possibilities for building the dashboards for yourselves and for your teams. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. I'm just going to share my. Okay, so thank you very much. Just, are there any questions? Jenna, have you any questions there on the chat panel?
Yeah, one question did actually come through there about the KPIs. Just wondering, has the KPI number increased? Because we think it may have been only 10 at one stage.
Yeah, well, if we get the number of lines on it, no, that hasn't increased beyond 10. Now let me double check that, and I'll get back just to make sure that is correct. But as far as I know, it is still 10.
And there are only a number of KPIs you can actually put onto your. There are some restrictions around how many KPIs you can put onto your dashboard.
You only can put one KPI dashboard on, and that's correct. The number of KPIs that you could display within that was 10. And you only can create up to 10 custom KPIs as well. So, and display up to 10 custom KPIs. Perfect. Okay, thank you. If there are any other questions, you can come back to us. So you can get in touch with us after today, sales@awesomecloud.ie or support@awesomecloud.ie. Just also to point out some additional resources. You're probably already using Suite Answers, but it's within the support menu within NetSuite. And in there's a huge amount of answers to all sorts of queries that you may have. And there are also some video tutorials in there as well. And we did send a link to some free video resources that NetSuite have made available to customers. I think there's about 6 hours worth of videos in there, so plenty to chew on there. So again, we'll forward that link on to you as well, and a follow-up email so you can have a look. There is also one in there around this topic as well. So again, there might be some additional learnings by watching that video as well. So just a reminder of our upcoming webinar. So we've got marketing automation on the 20th of May, and we have debtor management in June on the 23rd. We're also running some pre-recorded sessions on a range of topics that we think might be relevant to you. So we'll just drip feed those to you as and when they're available. So again, I just wanted to just kind of finish up by saying, I think just in these kind of choppy, uncharted waters that we're all facing at the moment, I think it's really important that we can access the information that we already have within our NetSuite system. And I think, you know, having those dashboards set up to reflect the current economic situation, being able to see not just year on year, but literally day on day, you know, how things are going. I think it's really important to be able to do that. So hopefully we've given you some food for thought there, and hopefully you can start to put this into practice. But again, we're always there. If there's anything you need, just come back to us and we'll hopefully point you in the right direction. So other than that, I just want to say thank you very much. Thanks from myself, Brian and Jenna as well for joining us, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks a million. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brian, Jenna. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.